What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, arm yourselves, life stuff. This is an important one, and although I'm tuckered out, I think I am calm enough we can try to hit all of the important stuff. We're gonna try. So we'll start with an example of what I would consider an initiated adept of reality. What does an initiated truth adept look like? What do they do? What magic do they cast? Well, I think Tony Ferguson is a straightforward example. I said boogeyman yesterday off the cuff, and that made me think of El Kukui. Two things specifically. One from a documentary I watched about him last year, and one from an edit about him. In the edit, he discusses pain. That pain is the only thing that's real. He says you can be happy, but that happiness might be fake. He says you can be sad, you can be crying, but those tears might be fake. But you know pain is real because you'd really like it to stop. And I think what he means by these statements is, how do you know if you're happy, if you're actually happy, if it feels good and you want it to keep going? How do you know you're really sad if crying feels like a relief? It's a bad feeling, but it's also a good feeling. Pain, on the other hand, just really hurts. And even if you'd like it to stop, it doesn't stop. When you work hard to attune yourself with reality, you come to realize everything except pain and misery are fake. Anything that isn't agony, you think isn't agony, is an ephemeral shield conjured to protect you from agony. And you'll change shields 100 times, you'll change concepts, you'll change habits, you'll change emotions, but they all together serve to protect you from agony. And not just the feeling of agony, but the omnipresence of agony, the omnipotence of agony. And once you realize that, you start developing a strange relationship with reality. Because truth is invigorating, not in spite of its pain, but because of it. When you're in agony, you are touched by the background radiation or the building blocks of reality. These are God's hands strangling you. And it also makes you more dangerous, because once you understand reality and the falsehood of anything and everything else, you realize all you need to do to destroy the people who want to destroy you is shatter their protective delusions. And the ways to do this scale from mundane to awful, but reality is a powerful tool or force when channeled, because everyone has to face it eventually. And that leads into not the second thing Tony Ferguson said, but the second thing about Tony Ferguson that I saw in that documentary from however long ago. This fighter talked about the way Tony kept kicking him in the shins. And he talks about just how painful shin-to-shin kicks are. Not just for the person receiving the kick, but also for the person dealing it. And the fighter talked about the way he was thinking, Jesus Christ, this hurts. I know it's hurting you as much as it's hurting me. Why are you making us both miserable? Why are you making us both suffer? But see, that is exactly what truth magic is. You aren't crushing someone. You're dragging people under the water of reality, dragging them down into agony, wagering you can hold your breath longer than they can. Dancing closer and closer to the fire, trying to get the other person burned. Or drag them into heat hotter than their endurance. And when you're tuned into the reality frequency, that is an effective, if agonizing, form of magic. You're trying to hurt me in delusion land. I'll take us both down into reality right now and then we both can be miserable. I'll cut off my hand if it means you lose yours. And this is an ugly, painful place to be, but reality and people are ugly and painful. The only differences between people are if someone accepts what they are, and when and how they do that if they do. And when you get into this space, the longer you stay in it, the more you come to understand what reality is, that every path leads to the same destination, because it's not one spot, it is the bedrock of everything, the more power you develop. And I think once you reach the point you get it, you become capable of unnatural shit. Tony Ferguson was and is, to the average person, terrifying. Capable of things the average human, even the elevated, motivated human, isn't. And it all comes from that understanding of reality. And not running from it, but embracing it. That is what an initiated reality adept is. But reality, truth, is dangerous. The longer you stay in that state, stay in that place, the more soaked you become with reality radiation. And human minds aren't built to deal with reality, especially once you're so deep or you're so overexposed to reality, you realize you're looking at the answer but you don't understand it. And then that lack of understanding takes over. It's not just hurting, it's hurting on a scale you can't fit inside your puny human mind. Something not built to understand this. Just how painful reality is. So in the life of a truth adept, there's a rhythm. It's like a heartbeat. We'll get to that. I've noticed a pattern in reality adepts. Somewhere along the line, they stumble into an understanding of their own powerlessness, of the agony of reality. But instead of running from this pain, something about it makes them want to understand it. So they start following paths until they reach the end of one and find that same agony. And then they follow more paths to their ends and discover that same agony. And then at some point, even if they don't initially accept it, the truth dawns on them. And then they spike in power, not in spite of agony or hatred, but because of it. Then they peak, and then sometime after that, they implode, if they don't die outright. And if they don't die, they implode for a few reasons. One, think of reality as a vibration, not water, not a fire, something that vibrates at the exact frequency required to disintegrate everyone and everything. And it does disintegrate everyone and everything. You don't escape that by embracing it. Maybe you think you aren't trying to embrace it, but on some level, because you're a human, you are. You are still trying to make the pain stop by embracing the pain. So you might be able to channel this drum to disintegrate someone else, but you certainly will be disintegrated. And the more you channel it, the more unnatural shit you pull off by channeling truth, the closer and closer you come to vibrating yourself apart, or to being vibrated apart. Because even if you have a higher tolerance, inbuilt or trained, you are not invulnerable to it. It's not your buddy because you're using it. If anything, it's going to enjoy rattling you apart even more, because it knows you know about it. You will succumb to the forces you're channeling. Now, everyone will succumb to them eventually, like we said last time. Truth is a boogeyman, it comes for us all, but you will succumb sooner and more explosively. you will rattle apart. And I think Tony Ferguson is a good specimen to view because over the course of his career, you get to watch one full cycle of reality adeptry on a big, bright stage. But I wanted to talk about this reality adept shit more personally because this morning we started a cycle and over the course of one day almost ended in a meltdown. And that's a process that at first takes years, then takes months, then at least takes weeks. So, what is this? How did it happen? And what can we learn from it? Well, to begin, I started the day sad. We've been discussing it, but I've been feeling like a sap lately. Like this morning, I just got hit with this idea of someone getting old and dying, and that upset me. And then I watched that video about the mother who was an orphan, now has her own biological daughter, and she's explaining to her daughter that she was an orphan, and to simplify it, she says her mother didn't want her, and then the daughter says, "Well, I want you, mommy." And it's very sweet, it's also sad, and it put me in a cry-edging state. I'm not crying, but I'm on the verge of crying for like 30 minutes while I'm getting dressed and going to work. Am I about to start crying? I'm on the verge. And then I get to work, and I can immediately tell from the attitude, this isn't good. Whatever's going on isn't good. And in my fragile emotional state, I'm thinking, oh God, people are going to be mean to me. Because when you're in delusion land, when you feel you can be a sap, you're getting softer, while other people, whether or not they are attuned to reality, they are awful, they are reality's agents, and they're getting harder. And they're going to be more capable of hurting you, while you are becoming less capable of defending yourself. So I'm getting my bearings, trying to figure out what's going on while still trying not to cry. And then I realize this situation I'm in right now is really bad. As in, it's so bad, I might be able to protect myself, but no matter how this turns out, some damage has been done and there are going to be consequences of some sort for someone. There are lots of miscommunications within this organization, and sometimes it feels like they aren't miscommunications. And normally when it comes to money, there is an amount of money someone is supposed to spend on one thing. And if there's a miscommunication, that's bad, but it's okay, because even though we have lost money or something's gone wrong here, it's just us, we can fix this. Whereas here, other people are involved, someone fucked up, fibbed about it, and then ducked. And of course, the instant anything goes wrong, the first thing anyone wants to do is find somebody to blame and hurt, not to fix the problem. And when it rains, it pours, right? It's like a car. A small little bit of wiring you think is auxiliary goes wrong, and then it cascades and takes out everything else. That was the situation I found myself in this morning. Someone did an oopsie, lied, big oopsie and lied, and now people who are not within our organization's umbrella are looking to blame somebody, and that person is me. And of course, when are people the most rational? It's when they are indignant and furious. So we have money that was promised to go to these places, and it didn't, and nobody is reading the notices, nobody is following the directions. Everyone individually wants to take a piece out of somebody. They want to punish somebody. So I have to put on my thinking cap and get my magnifying glass and determine who fucked up what, when, and what they lied about, because when I first got in, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know exactly what had gone wrong, while fending off swarms of ugly little American rodents. And then the moment I felt the gravity of what was going on, I had a word with myself. Alright, sissy, you can cry later, but if you want things to stay somewhat normal, it's time to be a big boy. And then all those feelings went away. I don't know where they went, but they got the heck out of there. And then we started channeling reality and dealing with the situation. And you need to channel reality because if you could ask for help in this situation, you would. But the whole reason this situation is happening at all is because it wasn't just one person fibbing, it was a bunch of people fucking up. It's all on you. Now, before we get further into what happened here, let's examine some things about channeling reality. One, there's like a reverse tolerance. Once you have felt reality directly, once you have been thoroughly overexposed to it, the faster you can channel it, or the faster it comes on, the faster reality cycles through your system, the faster you become powerful, the faster you crash. And I wrote down a lot of notes today, but I put the cycle into 5 steps. 1. Encounter problem that needs power to resolve. 2. Enter flow state, or start channeling reality. 3. Dwell in the flow state even after resolving the problem, soaking in the knowledge, power, and reality. 4. Feel pushed to use the power you're soaking up. 5. Abort and radiate off power. Abort at the last second with consequences, pass out somehow, or implode. I think you enter that state faster once you expose yourself to it, because you, by this point, have spent years tearing down all the walls of shielding. Someone uninitiated might enter this headspace and could, technically, dwell there for years without feeling it, Mr. Krabs, because they haven't or won't take down their reality shielding. It's a lot of work to do it, and it hurts. Whereas if you're initiated and you're deep in it, all it takes is a little bit of exposure, a little bit of time of exposure rather, because you're getting blasted with the full radiation of reality. You reach that level of hatred and power and understanding in an instant. And it's not just like an energy bar you are filling. It's more like a beat you tune your ears into, tune your body into. As a receiver, you open yourself up to feeling the beat. And Michael Kirkbride is terrifying because he's absolutely right about everything. The heart of Lorcan is the doom drum, and the heart of darkness, the heart of reality, the metronome of truth, is also the doom drum. Reality, truth, when you are attuned to it, sounds and feels like a thumping beat. It's this thumping that will vibrate you and everyone and everything apart. And I've noticed when I'm starting to enter whatever this is, like a flow state or something, my musical tastes reflect that. The music or the genre doesn't matter. All that matters is one single heavy beat thumping over which everything else is laid. And also static, but that's a different conversation. But see, the music is important because in these songs that feel like they're built for whatever this state is, all the music is built over or around that single beat. And reality, or life rather, works the same way. Life is all the auxiliary shit, falsehood, composed over that singular, deep, rhythmic beat under everything. Like a heart, like a metronome. And when you're tuned into this beat, You feel it in your chest, even without music, and it feels terrible. In the divine sense, this is bad for us, but boy is it awe-inspiring. And that's how truth creeps in, whether you're initiated or uninitiated. You feel the agony of reality and feel you can't compete, you feel you can't win. You're fighting something that you can't win. And then you realize, even though you can't win, the thing that is ultimately destroying you, or the thing that underlies everyone else's evil, is an agony that will rip them apart viscerally. And you can't save yourself, you can't win ultimately, but you can make other people so unbelievably miserable. You might be able to hurt me now in the way you want to. You might even hurt me permanently. But I guarantee you, I can make the remainder of your life feel not worth living. I can do that to you. I can hurt you on a scale of my choosing. And that's why we've talked about learning to do damnable things. Taking actions that are utterly damning, unjustifiable to everyone, including yourself. Actions that have no positive outcome. Because when people want to hurt you, you can channel reality and hurt them so much worse. And I'm wondering if there's some sort of natural element to this. I don't know if we've talked about this on the channel, but sometimes I feel like my soul is and always has been noxious. I would wager, based on the birds of a feather deal, people attracted to this channel might recognize this in themselves, but the phenomenon by which, even when you are trying to be good, see good, do good, hear good, speak good, it's like by mere vicinity to you, your surroundings rot. Not because things are getting worse, but because it's like people start seeing each other and seeing things as they are in truth, without your doing anything. Even with your explicitly, for months, trying to be positive, to make things better. And we'll shortly get more into the magical shit, but this is something I've been thinking about. Why does this happen? So, to my and seemingly everyone else's surprise, I managed to fix the situation as much as anyone could, given the information I had in the time I had. I caught the culprit red-handed with receipts. Now, I haven't totally resolved that situation, because I'm not sure what to do, but it's not a matter of getting a hold of them now, it's a matter of choking them out or not. Which probably needs to happen, because as it turns out, these are not miscommunications, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Dealt with the money situation. Now, the usual suspects are to blame, but not in a way I can prove yet. Regardless, the money situation is fine. It's not entirely worked out, but this is another thing. When a rodent shows up screaming, I can point to the cheese behind the glass wall that is slowly raising. Don't worry, rat, you'll get your money. But over the course of the day, I am drag racing, speeding into reality channeling. And you know you're channeling reality not just because situations that feel insurmountable, the answers to them start revealing themselves to you. It's not just that. You don't just become more capable. It's almost like you become aware of the psychic influence you can have on the world. And sometimes that feels like insanity, but the results speak for themselves, kind of. you can recognize that you are channeling yourself into these fates. You would not be accomplishing these things if you were not channeling reality. But then there are the grander things. About halfway through the day, something clicked regarding the sigils. Now, we haven't used the sigils in some time. In fact, we stopped using them shortly after my last breakdown because I suspected they were involved somehow. It clicked. This one. Odalide, Litnus Cathel, 3 skulls, the Soa, and a lot of lightning. But lightning moving like ropes in a constricting fashion, all closing in. Now, Litnus Cathel originally stood for Lightning Strike Them All, and I don't remember what Odalide stood for, which is probably a good thing, but it wasn't friendly. That sigil was designed to hurt people indiscriminately. Even if you have select people in mind, it was designed more for bringing lots of humans into reality quickly. That was the idea. But then it dawned on me. There were 7 people who really fucked me over when I was rising from a humble janitor into an executive mindset. We ran those sigils for between, I'd say, 1 and 2 months. In that time, 3 of the people who fucked me got fucked. The petty authority bully got petty authority bullied out of his position and humiliated enough. I haven't seen him or heard anything about him. I don't know where he went, but I know he got bullied out of his position. Another one who fucked me was an arrogant thief. Known as an arrogant thief, but earning alongside their partner probably close to $200,000 a year, which in the corporate world isn't a crazy amount, but for them, for people like them, that's a lot of money. For anybody, that's a lot of money, but for people like that, that's a lot of money. They fucked it up. Whatever their situation was, they screwed that up, and apparently didn't have enough money to retire, so one of them works at a grocery store and the other one is a manual laborer. Falling nice and far. And then the last one, who threw money, lots of money, at problems and people they didn't like, and threw their money around to get their way, they had a big project. Millions and millions of dollars. And it's a perfect investment concept, because how do you not make money doing this? Especially when, for any number of reasons, you have a monopoly. And you have millions and millions, and I stress millions, of dollars to get this going, and then in that sigil time period, they reveal that they have lost all their money, and this project can no longer continue. It's over. It's so over. Lots of people's millions wasted, but this individual's millions wasted, some of their millions wasted. And this failure has blown this person the fuck out so bad. Another recluse, another one I haven't seen or heard from. I know they're around, I know they're somewhere, but they certainly aren't putting their faces out there. Failure. So, bear with me. We use a violence sigil picturing 3 skulls for between 1 and 2 months. Within those 1 and 2 months, 3 people who fucked me got ruined, or at least humiliated. If you have that much money, you're probably going to be fine, but I'm sure your ego isn't that used to being hurt, that you aren't used to feeling that powerless, that embarrassed. And that might not seem like a lot, but to some people, to people who have lived their entire lives protected by petty authority, wielding petty authority, people who have been protected by money, people who lie, people who are not used to facing reality, something like being politically manhandled, or realizing that you didn't work for your money, and you're incapable of anything. You've spent your entire life learning nothing. Now you're a grocery store clerk. It hurts the soul. And it dawned on me today that maybe, probably not, but what if that sigil and that chain of events for those three people, the three skulls, are connected? And what if that breakdown I had was payment for services rendered? One of the things I regularly hear about when it comes to magic is you receive the energy you put out, and I always thought that was stupid. Because in reality, when you do good things, you invite bad things to happen to you. But I will say that concept is correct in that when you do bad things, you also invite bad things to happen to you. So what if a shattering that severe but miraculously survived was the price of channeling reality that potent upon specific targets? And that also got me thinking. If you paid attention to the sigils, said the magical words, let me know if in the last 3 months or so, 3 people you hate, people who have tried to ruin you, got hurt real bad in some way. And if they did you have some sort of shattering moment or minor shattering moment? But back to today's cycle. Getting off work. I'm high on the nausea, the hatred, and this uncomfortable wanting to die ecstasy of knowing you are channeling reality and you have it within you to shake people and things apart. I think I was intended to walk out of the office today afraid I might lose my job. Instead, I walked out of the office wondering what I would have to sacrifice to see another 3 of the people who fucked me over get brutally disfigured in some way. In a way that I can see them disfigured after they've been disfigured. Knowing that they're just going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives. Not to mention undergoing whatever it would take to become that disfigured. Do you want my left hand? I'll cut it off. Do you want one of my eyes? You can have one of them. And you can take it however you want. You want a bird to peck it out? I don't know how we'll work that out, but we can work it out. If all I had to pay for the previous 3 was a meltdown and a bad scare, how much more can I sacrifice without getting vibrated apart myself, because I want to be alive to enjoy this, and death is really scary? What is the most I can sacrifice to get the ugliest, most visceral results to produce the most misery upon the next 3 without actually dying? In that moment, I'm ready to sacrifice whatever, as long as I don't die. And rushing through the blood, there's this heartbeat, Lorcan's heart, the doom drum, feeling that these things are possible even if they aren't immediate, and you will have to pay. And at the same time, this rush of wanting to vomit, wanting to die, but also feeling attuned with the force that will disintegrate everything. The agony and the death we are so afraid of. The thing that's going to take us all. Take everything. And the thing that we are, the thing that we're constituted of, but are afraid to accept, not only because it hurts, but also because it means death. Accepting it will kill you. But being attuned with this thing, feeling the power of a god who loves torturing its creations. And by the time I've gotten home, I realize that I am close to going critical. And it's shocking because it has never happened that fast for me before. The moment I get home, I'm overheating. I feel like I'm gonna start dry heaving, and all I want to do is drink until there's nothing. You're right back on that track. For someone uninitiated, it's not hard to steer away because they aren't exactly driving on a road. They haven't formulated or conjured a full road in their mind, that level of understanding. But here, you're on the road and you're running out of ground. You're about to crash. Now, obviously, you don't want to die, but you know exactly where this is going, so you need to drink to blackout right now, before something bad happens. Which is, of course, a trick, because drinking to blackout, if you don't die, is. That's what it is, it's death. It's just, instead, a matter of whether or not your bioform without your soul or your consciousness can manage to get you dead. But we didn't drink. We got naked, we overheated, we drank cold water, we dry heaved, we hurt, we really, really hurt, and then we did some breathing exercises, inhaling and holding it in. And a mantra I've adopted is, in these moments, is for your health, be positive. And, affirmations or mantras or whatever bullshit is supposed to make you feel better usually doesn't work. For some reason, that one for me works sometimes. Works enough that I hug it. I like it. And that energy took a lot longer to radiate off than it did to radiate in. It's like heat dispersion, is that the right word? So humans can sweat, dogs can pant, but then I think it's like in space or something, or in certain situations, there is no way to get rid of heat other than to let it radiate out. That's kind of how this reality feels when you're channeling it and you get soaked. There isn't really a way to make it go away immediately. You can't sweat it out, you can't pant it out. You have to just sit there in agony until it goes away. And, even when we talk about magical shit, we try to have a rational idea of what's going on. I don't know what exactly this is from a totally atheist perspective. I know emotions can have a tremendous effect on people, but what is this that it's a cycle identifiable not just in one person but in a few people? Maybe it's because I'm trying to protect myself in delusion land, but I feel like I'm always in this state between doubting mysticism and mysticism being the only thing. And it's another one of those weird contradictions in which they both feel correct at the same time. Or if you want to think about it another way, to my mind, mysticism is actually the more rational, reasonable answer, but even when you get to that level, I still doubt it for some reason. Whereas I feel like that's supposed to be opposite. That science is the ultimate answer, or atheist doctrine, present contemporary atheist doctrine, is the ultimate answer, but maybe you have a few suspicions about the mystical. I don't know. But I did have another thought about what these meltdowns might be. And I think we've talked about this concept a little bit before, but, well, I know we have a little bit. Muscles. The more muscle you have, the more force you can exert, let's say. But if you build muscle really quickly, like you are a 20-year-old male doing go-mad, dirty bulking and lifting hard and haven't gotten your noob gains, and you have delicious genetics, you're going to turn into such a monster so quickly. You're going to build so much muscle so quickly. Your skin, the organ designed to contain your muscle, can't keep up. you get stretch marks so grotesque they hurt. All because your ability to exert force is growing faster than the frame designed to contain it. But at the same time, because of physical limitations, you might have great genetics, you might be able to put on a lot of muscle, but even with enhancements, there is only so much weight even the perfect human frame can put on. So much muscle. So what if these meltdowns are a similar process but for the soul? Maybe reality isn't killing you per se. I mean, it is killing you, but maybe it's more like a butterfly breaking out of a chrysalis. Goes in a caterpillar, gets mulched into sentient goo, and then reforms as something that can fly. Reality is the ticket to power as long as you are committed to disintegration, but your limited, fragile little human body, and particularly your mind, can contain your greater soul only to a certain degree. Ergo, because you have these meltdowns after wielding or coming better to understand the scope of reality and its powers, maybe reality is trying to make you dead, your body dead, so your grotesque butterfly soul can emerge, formless and unlimited, ready to join the Archons. Probably not, but I don't know. Growing pains are brutal. Anyway, I managed here actually to avert that meltdown just by lying there and literally radiating, letting the heat radiate off me. Letting that reality radiation, that horrible energy radiate away. And I knew reality wasn't going anywhere. It's too intoxicating. Because even now that I'm not nauseous, now that I don't feel like I'm dying, even now, even with all of the happy static bullshit I'm flooding my mind with to try to get into a more comfortable, more palatable state, I am still thinking, how many limbs would I be willing to give up if I got to watch those next 3 get disfigured? No bullshit, give it to me straight, and let me think about it. Reality channeling, once you've unlocked it in your skill tree, is dangerous because it's necessary. And all it takes is beginning to channel it to overcome an obstacle that you otherwise wouldn't be able to overcome, for it to spiral into zealotry. But these have all been thoughts about and observations on reality occultism. And actually, that sounds like a much better title than what I have planned presently. That's what we're going to use. Reality occultism. The one true power. And although I'm certain I'm forgetting something, I think we actually managed to get all the important shit in. It's a miracle. I wonder how I'm going to have to pay for that later. Cosmic Vagrancy returning in the next couple days. I am really tuckered out at the moment. But I do appreciate everyone who participates. It is not just not the nightmare I was afraid it was going to be, but it's actually fun to do. And I think we'll leave it all here for the evening. And actually, before we go, one more thing. I did think a thought about kindness. Kindness is not being nice to people. It is being nice to people after they've wronged you. That's kindness. That is trying to be good for the sake of good. And that's probably why anyone who's actually kind gets killed or crippled or dies destitute. They, too, have tasted reality, but in a different way. But it all ends the same. Do you want to disintegrate out of existence, being taken advantage of, being disappointed, being hurt, or do you want to disintegrate hurting people as much as they hurt other people. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.